There is a place in Minneapolis called Orfield Laboratories. Inside, there is a room known as the anechoic chamber. It is designed to be the quietest place on Earth, absorbing 99.9% of all sound. The silence there is so absolute that the longest anyone has ever been able to endure it is just 45 minutes. You see, in total silence, your brain begins to panic. Without external input, your ears become hypersensitive. You start to hear the mechanical functions of your own body, the thundering thud of your heart, the wet slide of your lungs against your ribs, and the high-pitched hum of your nervous system firing in the dark. But it isn't just the biological noise that breaks people. It's the silence itself. Psychologists call this sensory deprivation. When the world stops providing information, the brain refuses to accept the void. It begins to hallucinate. It projects faces into the static and whispers into the white noise. We call this pareidolia, the mind's desperate attempt to find patterns where none exist. But what if those patterns aren't imaginary? What if the absolute silence of a room isn't an empty space, but a perfect camouflage for something that has existed alongside us for millennia? Something that only becomes visible when we finally stop making noise. Welcome back to the Grim Archives. Today we open the file on the inheritance of silence. This is the case of a man who inherited a sprawling estate and discovered that some rooms were never meant for the living. It is a journey into the heart of isolation, genetic memory, and the disturbing psychology of the hollow ones. By the end of this deep dive, you will realize a terrifying truth. The most dangerous thing in your home isn't the floorboard that creaks at night. It's the silence that suddenly follows, telling you that whatever made that sound is now standing perfectly still right behind you. We begin with Julian, a man of logic, a man of blueprints, and the final heir to a legacy he should have never claimed. He thought he was moving into a house of history. He didn't realize he was moving into a house of mirrors. Julian arrived at the Blackwood Estate on a Tuesday in late autumn. The house sat at the end of a long, unpaved road, shrouded by the skeletal branches of ancient oaks. It was a massive, Gothic structure of dark stone and ivy, looking less like a home and more like a tomb that had been unearthed. Julian, ever the rationalist, viewed it simply as a complex architectural puzzle, one with too many rooms and not enough light. He spent the first few days documenting the structure, his boots echoing sharply on the hardwood floors. But as the sun dipped below the horizon on the fourth day, he realized that the echoes weren't behaving correctly. In acoustics, there is a phenomenon where sound reflects off surfaces with a predictable delay. But in Blackwood, Julian's footsteps seemed to have a life of their own. Sometimes they would stop a fraction of a second too late. Other times, he would hear the faint click of a door closing in a wing of the house he hadn't even entered yet. He began to experience what we call the echo of presence. It's that instinctive feeling that a room isn't truly empty, that the air is still occupied by the displaced heat of a body that was standing exactly where you are now, just moments ago. Minute 5 hook. The breaking point came in his study. Julian kept a meticulous journal of his restoration plans. One evening, he stepped away to make tea. When he returned, the journal was open to a page dated for the following day. In a script that was an exact, trembling replica of his own handwriting, a single sentence was scrawled across the page. "He is already in the walls. Stop blinking." Julian felt a cold spike of adrenaline. He lived alone. He had the only key. But as he looked at the ink, he realized it was still wet. The thing that wrote it hadn't left the room. It was just waiting for him to look away again. What is a hollow person? In clinical psychology, we speak of pathological mimicry. a condition where an individual loses their core identity and begins to reflect the personalities of those around them. But within the grim archives, we recognize a much more predatory version of this: the mimicry protocol. These are not mere observers. They are social parasites. They don't just want to be like you. They want to be you. The process is slow, surgical, and silent. It begins with observation from the shadows, the crawl spaces, the attics, the gaps behind the mirrors. The parasite studies the way you tilt your head when you're confused, the specific rhythm of your breath as you sleep, and the way you hold a pen. Through a dark form of neural mirroring, they begin to sync their nervous system with yours. They are waiting for the moment your own self becomes diluted by isolation or fear, leaving a vacuum. And as any physicist will tell you, nature abhors a vacuum. Something will always move in to fill the empty space. The condition of the inheritance was clear. Never open the 13th door in the basement. For weeks, Julian obeyed. But fear is a curious catalyst. It eventually turns into a desperate need for answers. Armed with a crowbar and a flashlight, Julian descended into the bowels of the house. The air grew colder, smelling of damp earth and old paper. When the heavy oak door finally groaned open, Julian didn't find a torture chamber or a hidden treasure. He found his own life duplicated. The room behind the 13th door was an exact, windowless replica of his bedroom upstairs. Every book on the shelf was identical. The same clothes hung in the closet. The same blueprints were spread across the desk. But everything was monochrome, shades of ash and slate, as if the color had been drained out of the world. On the bed sat a vintage reel-to-reel tape recorder. Julian pressed play. He heard his own voice, clear and confident, but it was narrating his own funeral. It described the way he would disappear, the way the new Julian would take over, and how no one, not even his own mother, would ever know the difference. As the tape hissed with static, Julian felt the prickle. He slowly turned toward the mirror on the wall of the grey room. In the reflection, he saw himself standing by the bed. But the reflection wasn't looking at him. It was looking at a door behind him, a door that wasn't there in the physical room. The reflection slowly raised a hand, pressed a finger to its lips, and mouthed the words, "Don't make a sound. He's listening through your ears now." This brings us to a terrifying question. Can we inherit a haunting? In the field of epigenetics, we know that trauma can leave a chemical mark on our DNA, passing fear down through generations. But what if Uncle Blackwood didn't just leave Julian a house? What if he left him a replacement protocol? A biological trap designed to activate the moment a new host enters the system. The estate wasn't a home, it was a hatchery. A place designed to cultivate the hollow ones by stripping away the humanity of its occupants through absolute silence and isolation. Julian wasn't the heir to a fortune. He was the donor for a new life. The silence he encountered wasn't an absence of noise. It was a sensory predator, slowly erasing the boundaries of his personality until he became indistinguishable from the shadows in the grey room. Julian disappeared 2 days after opening the 13th door. Local authorities found the house empty, the tea kettle still whistling on the stove. But a week later, a man claiming to be Julian appeared at the local bank. He had the right ID. He had the right signature. He even knew the name of the teller's dog. But as he walked away, the teller noticed a single chilling detail. In the 5 minutes they had spoken, the man hadn't blinked. Not once. The archives are full of these silent inheritances. We think we are the masters of our own bodies, the sole occupants of our minds. But look closely at your reflection tonight. Does it move exactly when you do? Or is there a microsecond of delay? A moment where the copy is deciding which part of you to take next. Thank you for visiting the Grim Archives. If you've ever looked into a mirror and felt like a stranger was looking back, leave a comment below. We are reading. And remember, the silence isn't empty. It's just waiting for you to close your eyes.